Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our program on Social Security Disability. My name is Sharon Rich. I'm the Senior Trust Advisor at AGID, and we here at AGID live and breathe disability and Medicaid. Our primary business is managing special needs trusts for persons with disabilities. And we help a lot of seniors also to get on Medicaid to help them, reduce medication costs and copays, long-term care costs, etc. So I hope that this program is helpful to you as we go through it, and it gives you things that you can use in your own practices. Our objectives today are to learn the differences between SSDI and SSI, the two main programs of Social Security Disability, who can qualify and what eligibility requirements are needed to qualify, what benefits come with each program, what happens when you convert from SSI to SSDI, and what happens at age 18. Just so you all know, my background is as a trust officer for the last 30 years. I am not an attorney, but again, I live and breathe this all the time. And so I just want to let you know that anything we say today is really for educational purposes only and is not intended to be legal advice. We just as a couple housekeeping notes, we had quite a few people on the presentation today, so I would ask you to hold your questions until the end. We will have plenty of time for Q&A. You can put your questions into the chat as we go along if you like, and we'll be trying to answer those for you at the end of the program. This is being recorded, and we will be providing you with, after the program, the PowerPoint presentation, as well as certificates of attendance, and we'll go over some continuing ed things at the end for you. So this is a pretty technical program, but I have a nice chart at the end that will hopefully help to put things in perspective for you. We're going to go through an overview of the two programs, talk about disability. What is the definition? Can you work while you're disabled? What is substantial gainful activity? What does it mean to be insured? Disabled adult child benefits, what are those? Who can qualify to get benefits under that program? What is SSI for adults and for children? What are the differences? Agency for a person with disability has some benefits for certain individuals. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And what happens when you turn 18? What do you need to think about? What are some of the changes there that are important? Converting from SSI to SSDI, that will happen for some people. We've got our comparison chart, and then we're going to go through some examples at the end. I've given you some links for some great Social Security resources. The main website, ssa.gov, disability. There is a list for some of the compassionate allowances that we're going to talk about. The red book is your guide on some of the employment-related provisions for working while you are still considered to be disabled. And your blue book, the next one on the list, talks a lot about the impairments and the disabilities and how all that works. So those are two really good resources. Your Social Security PALMS is the manual that Social Security uses with all of a lot of their laws, their detailed laws that surround a lot of the SSI benefit rules. And this link is just from a survivors, for regular Social Security, people that are survivors, I put that in. I had that in another presentation I did, so I left that in there for you. We're not going to really talk about regular Social Security today. The focus is on the disability program. There are two main programs for disability, the SSI and the SSDI. Social Security, of course, is going to be the one that determines your eligibility for the programs. So if you can no longer work, that kind of thing, you're going to apply for Social Security. One thing that both programs have in common is that you have to qualify under a medical diagnosis of disability. They're going to, collect medical records, etc., to determine if you meet that definition of disability. Then they're going to look at your work history. Have you worked enough to be considered to be insured? If yes, then SSDI is the program that you would put on. If no, then we have to look to the SSI program. And do you meet the other requirements needed for SSI? Medicare is given after 2 years of being on Social Security disability, SSDI benefits. That's Medicare. Under the SSI program, if you qualify for the SSI, you will get Medicaid. You're entitled to Medicaid, two very different health insurance benefits. With the SSI program, you haven't worked enough credits and years to be considered to be insured. So they are going to also add on a layer of a financial eligibility. So it is a needs-based program. You have to keep your income and your assets under a certain level in order to get your SSI benefit. And we're going to go into detail now about these different parts of the disability. So here's the definition for someone aged 18 and older to be considered to be disabled. You have an inability to engage in substantial gainful activity by reason of a medically determinable either physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death or last for at least 12 months. So basically, you are unable to work in substantial gainful activity for at least 12 months. So when you apply, they're going to look at a couple different questions to determine the disability question. Are you working? There is something known as substantial gainful activity. If you're working more than and earning more than what they consider to be substantial gainful activity, you most likely are not going to be able to get that disability determination. Right now, the number is $1,310 a month. It is higher if you are blind. They are then going to look, is your condition severe? So is it going to limit your ability to do work for at least 12 months? Are you unable to sit or stand or remember those things? So they're going to look at all of that. They do have a list of disabling conditions that under certain circumstances, and this is all general, right? Social Security, sometimes it's not all cut and dried. So most of what I'm going to say today is generally, this is the way it works. Compassion allowances, a lot of the cancers are on there. So if you have one of these conditions that's on the compassion allowance list, it's much easier to go through the process of the determination because it should be a little bit quicker. And there are, at least, there's supposed to be something called a quick disability determination computer screenings, but I'm not really saying that they're really doing that. Again, it's a process. It can take quite a while to go through the process. They're also going to look at, can you do the work that you did previously? If not, can you do any other type of work? Do you have transferable skills, education, all while considering your medical conditions? So this is kind of the things that Social Security goes through when they're trying to make that determination. And unfortunately, a very high percentage of people get denied the first time they apply for disability. It is an online process. I've got a slide on that later in the presentation here. And then sometimes people work with attorneys after the fact, after they get denied, etc., to try to, get that determination. Let's talk a little bit about working and having a disability at the same time. Is that even possible? Well, the answer is yes. Again, these are the numbers for this year for substantial gainful activity. Next year, I found on the website, it's gone up. It will be going up to $1,350 for an individual and $2,260 for a person that is blind. There are some work incentives that may be applied at the time of the Social Security application. And I'm going to talk about some employment supports also on the next few slides. So work incentives may reduce your countable income at the time of your application. For instance, if you have special transportation needs because of your disability, you're going to take that into consideration if you're still working. If you need attendant care to get ready for work, that's another consideration. And then, sometimes employers provide extra things for the person, accommodation, such as extra breaks, time off, etc. So that is supposed to be part of the consideration if you are working with a disability, to make sure you get under that substantial gainful activity number. Ticket to Work. This is a program that individuals can apply for. You actually get a ticket that allows you to sign up with a participant within the employment network, such as vocational rehabilitation. Organizations can get qualified to participate in these programs and let persons with disabilities, work for them. If you're under this program, you can keep your cash benefits and your medical coverage. In other words, your disability benefits as you transition to the workplace. So it's a great, if you think you might be able to, transition, etc. This is a program that you might want to look into. The website says that Maximus is the program manager, and this is a website that has quite a bit of information about the Ticket to Work program. There's another program called PASS, or Plan to Achieve Self-Support. This is where an SSI recipient is allowed to put aside money to pursue a goal of working. You might need to put aside expenses for further education or vocational training or technology, or even to start a business. So if you're working and you want to, eventually maybe go off of, the disability benefit, you're allowed to even save up for, certain expenses related to your work. trial work period is another program Social Security has. It allows you to work for, I believe it's at least 9 months and not count against your SSDI. So the Red Book, again, is your resource for a lot of these programs. Previously, there was supposed to be someone in the local Social Security office called a work incentive liaison. I don't know if they still have those by calling the 800 number or not, but anyway, there are resources out there for you. All the local Social Security offices are still closed because of the pandemic. So the next part of disability, once we figured out, okay, I am considered to be disabled, I can't work in substantial gainful activity. Now, are you insured? So we have to refer to the tables. It's not always, have I worked 40 credits? If you're younger, maybe you don't have to have worked at least 40 credits to be considered to be insured. You get 1 credit, up to 4 credits a year, for every $1,470 in earnings and covered earnings. So that's how you earn credits. It's by working and paying into the system. They're going to look, so it's not just how many credits do I have, but it's also, have I worked enough in the recent period of time? And there are tables for this also. So if I just gave you an example here, if you're 31 or older, generally you need to have worked at least 20 credits, about 5 years, in the 10-year period immediately preceding your disability. So you can't wait like forever, 10, 20 years, etc., to apply for disability benefits. It has to be within a certain period of time when you're not able to work any longer. Then they're also going to look at the duration. In other words, how long did you work? And again, you have to look to the tables. If you're under the age of 28, maybe 1.5 years of work is going to be enough, sufficient for you to get benefits under your own record and be considered insured. And look at the 46-year-old, it's like 6 years. At age 60, it's 9.5 years. So it depends on when you become disabled as to how many credits you need to be considered to be insured. So there's you can find this information online at the Social Security website here. This is our summary of the SSDI program. So this is for age 18 and older. You have to meet the adult definition of disability or be blind. And that was, we went through what that definition was. You have to have enough work credits to be considered to be insured. We just went through what that means, looking at the tables. If you meet those requirements, the government does not have any income or asset requirements on you. You can start collecting based on your own work record. You paid into the system, you can no longer work, so now you're going to be able to collect a benefit under your own work record. The government says that after 2 years of being on your disability benefits, we're going to give you Medicare. So you'll get a letter in the mail saying, you know, next month you're going to be entitled to Medicare. But you have to wait 2 years. So think about it, what's going to happen in that period of time, you know, for the next 2 years. You know, are you going to be able to qualify for Medicaid? Then you've got to go through the Medicaid qualifications. You know, or can you apply for health insurance through the exchange? you know, maybe not, maybe you can afford that, maybe not. There is an exception for a couple of disabilities, the Lou Gehrig's ALS disease and end-stage renal disease. You can get your Medicare right away. You don't have to wait the 2-year period. When you're on SSDI, when you reach your full retirement age, so for me, that's like 66 and 8 months, not 65 anymore. Then your Social Security, your SSDI will convert over to regular Social Security. Now, you might run across people that you know have never really been able to work. Maybe they even have a developmental disability, but when you look at their benefits, it's going to show that it's not SSI. It's a regular Social Security disability benefit. They could be under what we call the Disabled Adult Child Benefit, the DAC benefit. I'm going to have a slide on this to show you what that means. This is for individuals that are adults, but were disabled prior to the age of 22. And they have what they consider to be an insured parent. So you might have someone that's on SSI benefit, disabled prior to the age of 22, and their parent starts receiving Social Security retirement. Their benefit, their SSI benefit could now switch over to this DAC benefit and start collecting under the insured parent's record. Or if they have an insured parent that is receiving disability benefits themselves, or they have a parent who passes away and it would have had enough credits to be considered to be insured. So, you know, this is an important benefit, and we see this actually quite a bit for an individual that is now collecting under a parent's record. But remember, they have to have been determined to be or be disabled prior to 22. And this can increase their benefit. And we're going to talk more about that particular program. When do Social Security disability payments begin? So it can take a long time to get qualified, but the rule is, you know, they're going to give you like a disability determination date. You were disabled back to, and I have an example on the next page. Well, here's my example, January 15th. Okay. There's a 5-month waiting period. So they may say you're disabled on January 15th, but they're not going to pay you back to January. The first SSDI benefit is going to be for the 6th full month after your date of disability. And again, these are generalities. This is generally how it works. So let's say your onset date is January 15th. The initial payment is going to be for the month of July, January through July, 6 months. So the payment is going to be in August. The August payment is for the month of July, right? Now, retroactive payments could be made back to August. They're not going to go back to January because you've got to wait to, you know, get benefits. But they can pay you retroactively back to that August date if the approval takes longer than that period. And again, there are exceptions to the rules as usual. Some, you know, disabilities like the ALS, you can get it potentially sooner. One of the differences between SSI and SSDI is with SSI, there's no waiting period. So if they determine you to be disabled, you're not going to have to wait the 6 months to get the payment. So now we're going to talk about the Supplemental Security Income program for adults. Now, when you're 65 or older, you can potentially collect SSI without being disabled. That would be someone that had not worked enough, and paid enough into the system to get their own benefit. Or maybe they have a very small benefit and it's less than the $794. They could maybe get a combination of SSI and SSDI. Or if you're, under between 18 and 65, you can be blind or disabled and collect the SSI benefit. U.S. citizen or a qualified non-citizen, you have to be. Again, this is the program where you have not worked enough to be considered to be insured. Now you have to meet income and asset requirements by the government. If you look down at the chart, it says that for the asset limit, you can only have $2,000 in countable assets and have, your Social Security payment of this. So you have to, keep your assets under the $2,000 in order to qualify. So someone that meets all these other requirements, but yet they have, $30,000 in the bank, the government is not going to give them the SSI payment. If you get your SSI payment and you have at least $1 in SSI, you are entitled to receive Medicaid. So remember, with the SSDI, you had the Medicare after 2 years. With the SSI, you'll get your Medicaid right away. You're entitled to it. So 2 very different programs. And I'm just going to make a note here, since we manage so many trusts. There's a big difference between someone that's on SSI and SSDI when we're making payments from a trust, because the government says that this $794 payment is supposed to cover food and housing expenses. So when we have a trust for someone, we don't want to pay usually for either food or housing, because that is considered in-kind support and maintenance, or income basically to that disabled beneficiary, and supposed to report it to Social Security, and they will reduce your SSI payment for that month. So there's a lot more restrictions around when someone's on an SSI benefit. That's why, if any of you are on the call that work with aged, we're always asking what kind of benefit. It's really important for us to know. All right, so let's talk about people under 18, children. Okay, got someone, what is the definition of disability? It's a little bit different for children. Social Security says if you have a medical determinable physical or mental impairment that results in marked and severe functional limitations. So it's not inability to work, it's functional limitations. And the impairment is considered or expected to last at least 12 months or result in death. Then, that's the disability definition. There are some medical conditions on the compassionate allowances list, but it's not so much automatic. Like with autism, there's a lot of people on the spectrum, whether they're considered to be disabled or not is not always just automatic. Now let's say you've met the disability determination. Now Social Security is going to look at the family members in the household. So they are going to consider what the household income and resources, and there's tables for that, depending on how much the family members are making, how many people are in the household, that kind of thing. So if you've got a parent who's, working, making quite a bit of money, that kind of thing, The child may be disabled and maybe Down syndrome, whatever the case is, and they still are not going to be able to get that SSI payment, even though they're technically disabled. If they do, if the child does qualify, and then for the SSI payment, then they will receive Medicaid. They should be able to receive Medicaid. So what happens at 18? So that was, one definition, under 18. Now, when someone turns 18, even if they're on SSI, a redetermination needs to be done. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, I want to talk about that child with a developmental disability prior to the age of 18. There's APD services, Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Generally, you're applying for APD services between the ages of 5 and 18. They do have a list of disabilities on their website. There's a waiting list for APD services, and sometimes it's very hard to get off that waiting list. There are certain crisis situations that are can be used to help someone get off that waiting list to get some of these additional services through APD. Homelessness, I know, is one. Those kinds of things where the person is really in, a crisis type situation, can allow them to perhaps get off that waiting list. If they get off the waiting list, remember they're still, usually, under 18. If they are under 18, the parents' resources do not count for getting the APD services and the Medicaid. So you get off the wait list and there's a spot open, you're now considered to be a single household, which is great, so you can get the Medicaid. You're going to get Medicaid, you're going to get your APD services through the iBudget, and they're going to have some personal care services there for you. Basically, these services through the iBudget are supposed to provide for home and community-based supports and services with developmental disabilities so that they can live in their home and their community. And a little bit more, you have to meet the level of care on APD. You have to be eligible for Medicaid to get this, and diagnosed with a qualifying disability. So through the waiver, they provide services such as life skills development. They will sometimes provide supplies and equipment, personal supports, residential supports, sport coordination, and therapeutics. So therapies in the homes, transportation, wellness programs, those kinds of things. And there will be a waiver support coordinator. So a lot of times these kinds of supports are really important to someone, in addition to just getting the medical benefits, to help them, be more comfortable and develop and everything through life. Okay, so that's APD. So what happens now when someone turns 18? They are considered to be an adult. So you need to reapply for that Social Security determination if you're already on SSI, or go ahead, let's say that you had applied earlier, or you didn't apply, got Down syndrome, but you knew the parents had too much money, whatever. It's important to go ahead and get the determination done when they turn 18. Remember, the parents' income and household no longer counts. So you're applying on your own. And this is going to establish your disability to get that DAC benefit later on. So you've got to, get that disability established prior to the age of 22. And again, because your parents' household income no longer counts, you can now potentially obtain the SSI benefit and the Medicaid that goes along with it. So really important to remember. At 18 also, does the individual need to be have a guardian? Does the parent need to become the guardian or somebody else? If you're have a developmental disability, guardian advocacy is a little bit an easier process to go through to get that guardianship done, because a lot of times there's less medical things that need to be provided and all. So it's important to think about turning 18. Technically, the parents are not allowed to make healthcare decisions for someone, under or once that they hit 18. So, and financial decisions, all of that. So it's important to think about that individual really able to manage things on their own. Is that the best thing for them, or do we need to apply for guardianship? In some cases, individuals will be on SSI, and it might change to SSDI. For instance, if you're on SSI and your parent passes away, you can now potentially start collecting under their own record and get the SSDI for the disabled adult child. So what happens in that case? You are supposed to be allowed to keep your Medicaid. And that's so important for so many people. So again, you're going to have to keep your assets under $2,000, but you can now get that higher SSDI payment. Say parents' record under SSI, you were getting $794. Now you're collecting under parents' record, maybe you're getting $1,200, $1,300, whatever. That's fine. As long as you keep your resources under the Medicaid limit, you should be able to keep your Medicaid, protected Medicaid, and income. You can't start earning a lot of income from other sources. And sometimes Social Security will mess up the coding and all, and we actually have resources for people that can help individuals like that, know how to go through the Social Security system. But I've got a little tip here for you, that if you think the individual's lost their Medicaid in error because of this, fax a letter to the DCF office, tell them it's SSI protected Medicaid, give them the case number, the bank account, the original award letter, get them all of that kind of stuff to get it reinstated. Another time where this may happen is when someone has lost their SSI due to work, but still meets the requirements. So they're working while disabled, under the working while disabled protections. Sometimes their payment will stop, but they're still supposed to be allowed to keep their Medicaid. So just something to think about. Here's my chart for you under the 3 different programs we've talked about so far today: SSI, SSDI, and the DAC benefit, disabled adult child. What are the age limits for each one of these? Okay, SSI, if you're under 18, parents' resources count. 18 or older, you're considered to be an adult. These other 2 are for 18 or older. Medical diagnosis. So, it just goes through. So this is a good resource for you to remember all the differences. The payments, again, under SSI are based on the federal benefit amount, $794 this year. Based on the Social Security disability is based on your own work record, and the DAC benefit is based on the insured parent's record. Right? I want to have 3 scenarios for you. I know we don't have a lot of, can't really do Q&A here, but I'm going to ask you to think about this. We've got John, who is 60 now. He had gotten into a car accident when he was 50. He became paralyzed from the waist down, and he's got diabetes, high blood pressure, COPD. However, John, prior to his accident, was a car mechanic for 25 years, and he had managed to save up $30,000. So he applied for Social Security after his accident, figured he could no longer work. What kind of Social Security benefit do you think John would be entitled to? Is it going to be SSI, SSDI, or DAC? What kind of health insurance would he receive? So he's 60 now. He had a work record, right? He worked 25 years. So he got put on the SSDI benefit. He's getting $1,800 a month based on his own record. What type of health insurance would John receive? So after 2 years of the SSDI, he would have Medicare. Right now with his $30,000, he's got too much for Medicaid, unless he maybe does some kind of planning techniques or something. We actually have a pooled trust where we'll reduce countable income and assets for individuals like this to get them on Medicaid to go with Medicare. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. John is not going to have APD. He was not developmentally disabled. So right now he's got his SSDI and his Medicare. Now we have Alice, who's 30 and has had cerebral palsy since birth, mild seizures, lives with her parents who are bankers and attorneys. No savings in her name. So what type of Social Security would Alice be receiving? And what type of health insurance? So we have to deduct sometimes. We have people that come in and talk to us and they tell us they're on SSI and they're really on SSDI and vice versa and all that. So we have to think about this. She would be entitled to SSI at age 18. Why not before? Because the parents had too much money. They were, professionals and working and had too much money. But they did the determination at age 18, and now Alice is collecting SSI under her, for herself. So what kind of health insurance would she have? Medicaid. $1 in SSI gives you Medicaid. Did Alice have APD services? Well, she might have applied for it and got on the waiting list. Did she ever get off? We don't really know. Maybe. No Medicare. She's on SSI right now. But what happens if one of her parents retires? Then she may be converted over to that disabled adult child benefit and collect the SSDI. And yes, she'd be able to keep her Medicaid under the protected Medicaid rules. So that's Alice. Now we have Sally. Sally was 50, she's 50 now. She's got bipolar. She's was depressed at the age of 25, diagnosed for those. She's a little bit unstable, had trouble working, on and off, but she did graduate from high school. So she's worked sporadically, library. She lives with her parents. The father was I'm a golfer, so I can say this, a wannabe golf instructor. Her mother is a teacher. Unfortunately, her father got hit and with a golf ball and went into a coma. And that's when Sally really went into a deep depression. So she applied for and received disability benefits. So what kind of benefits do you think Sally would be getting? She's 50 now. In my example, Sally had met the work record and the duration, or in the recent, rules. So they gave her SSDI based on her own work record. That's $1,100 a month. If she had not met those requirements, then perhaps she would have, to be considered to be insured, and perhaps she would have been put on the SSDI. Or maybe her payment was not enough to even reach the $794 limit. They would have given her a combination of SSI and SSDI, perhaps. So Sally's on SSDI after 2 years, then she could get her Medicare. Her income's too high for the community Medicaid. That's a whole different program. So Sally, did she apply for Medicaid and maybe couldn't get it? Maybe they put her on share of costs. She's not going to get APD because she's not developmentally disabled. This is how you apply for disability benefits. I can hear some background noise. If someone keep their mic off of, if you could put your self back on mute, I would appreciate it. Thank you. I'm still hearing a lot of paper moving around. There used to be Social Security offices that were open, and a lot of times the SSI application would be done, like with an interview in the office. Now you have to apply online. You will have to create a My Social Security account online. If you're an SSI applicant, they will end up doing a phone interview with you at some point. One of my resources told me when you're applying for disability benefits online, that you should most always select the box that says yes to the question, is this application also an application for SSI? That way, if for some reason your work record is not enough to be considered to be able to be insured, then they'll start looking at the SSI as an option for you. If you don't select that box, there's a chance that they could just deny you and not even consider SSI. So that's just a little tip to try to remember when you're, if you're applying or helping someone apply. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I'm not going to go over this chart. I just put this in as a little extra for you. This is the financial eligibility chart for Medicaid. That's so important for a lot of our persons with disabilities. That chart changes about every 3 months, or is republished every 3 months. And this is a chart that I use when I'm talking about the different types of special needs trust for persons with disabilities, as a way to allow them to put, money, their excess money into a trust to qualify for Medicaid benefits when they're disabled. And this is our information here. And before we go into questions, there are CEUs for the guardians that Julie will report for you. If you haven't already sent Julie your OPPG number, please do so. And the attorneys, of course, can self-report, and we'll be sending the certificate out, like I said earlier. and everybody will actually get a certificate of attendance within a week. We'll be sending all of that information out. So with that concludes our presentation. So Julie, if you could help me with the chat and the questions. And I wanted to just thank Julie very much for helping to coordinate all of this for us today.
Hi, everybody. So if you have questions, feel free, if you want to put it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask your questions, you're welcome to do that too. I'm actually going to stop sharing the screen, and that way we can see everybody.
Okay. So I'll hit stop share.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions? You can get a printout. Yes, you absolutely can get a printout when we send out the certificates for CEs. I will send you guys a copy of the slides for today. I will also send you guys a copy of the YouTube stuff because we'll put it on YouTube. And yeah, it looks like I see Maria says there's only 56 participants. We closed out at 100 because we had 100 registered. It looked like some people were not able to join us today.
I have a question for you. If a person, after the 2-year mark and you're eligible to get the Medicare that's given, is that Medicare both A and B? And if it's both A and B, do you still have to pay that, pay for the Part B, like the 148, whatever?
Yes, good question. Yes, it's just like you're normally on Medicare. So you'll get, you'll be entitled to, you know, the A, B, D for the drug coverage. You can get a supplement. You can get an Advantage plan to cover the 20% that Medicare doesn't cover. You will have to pay your Part B. Again, though, there are, you know, under that Medicaid chart that I showed you at the end, there are certain programs, SLIMB, QI1, QMB, that if your income's under a certain dollar amount, you may qualify for a Medicare savings program, which can help with you not having to pay your Part B premium. And help with getting extra help for medications and potentially even co-pays covered. But basically it's regular Medicare. So when the person is entitled to that, they have to decide, do I want to get my Medicare through traditional Medicare, or do I want a Medicare Advantage plan? So, you know, with an Advantage plan, that's kind of an all-in-one, usually includes drugs, etc. But with the traditional, you've got your A and B, you have to get a Part D plan for your drug coverage and pay for that. And then what, you know, what are you going to do for the 20%? You can't, Medicare only covers about 80% of things. So that's a whole, but it's regular Medicare, just like anybody else turning 65 and is entitled to Medicare.
Okay, and I have a second question. Regarding a child getting the death benefits, how long are they entitled to the benefits? At what time? At what age does it stop?
The disabled adult child benefit, to my knowledge, it does not stop. And once they get that, it's not going to stop.
No, let's say, for example, they are a child, they're, let's say, 15 years old, and they have a parent that passes away, let's say it's a father, then that child is entitled to his Social Security, correct?
So you're talking about under the age of 18 and then the parent dies. That's a little bit, I didn't really go over like all of those rules. Those get to be a little bit technical about who can collect and who can't. So I believe what happens is that when they turn 18, then, they have to kind of go through, like a reevaluation. So it's a little bit different when you're under 18.
Okay. Thank you.
There's lots of rules around that. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple other questions. Patricia Martz asked if a ward has been getting SSDI, cannot work, and I think I'm missing a word, and hasn't in years, could they lose their SSDI if they have to draw money from their investments? So if they're on SSDI and haven't worked, could they lose their SSDI if they have to draw money from their investments?
So SSDI benefits do not have any kind of resource test. So they can have investments when they're on SSDI. So that does not disqualify them from getting SSDI. The thing about working, so they would have had to work some to get the SSDI benefit, and worked enough to be considered to be insured. But once they meet that qualification and can no longer work, they're disabled, then there's no asset or income limit. Hopefully that answers your question.
Desiree, wait, hold on, Patricia has a follow-up. She says, but they need to take from their investments that are taxable. So won't that hurt their SSDI benefits? Just to clarify.
No, income and investments, earnings do not affect SSDI unless you're on the disabled adult child thing. Okay, so that's different, but a regular SSDI payment is not affected by investment earnings.
Okay, that seemed to answer her question. She said, thank you. The next question
Good.
we have is, would a Social Security Administration assist an individual who is visually impaired to fill out a benefit application?
Would Social Security assist someone who's visually impaired? That's a really
Like a
good
blind
question.
person.
Yeah, I would hope so, but I really don't know. We might have someone on this call that might be able to answer that question, but I would only hope that answer would be yes. But I don't know.
The only other question I got in here is, can we see more of the dog? You guys can probably see my dog right here, but she's sleeping. Do you guys have any other questions?
We only had one dog today, Julie. We have 6 or 7 in our office every day. So
yeah, they're all kind of shut out for the webinar right now to keep them quiet. So Lucy's been quiet, so she's allowed to sleep in my office. So but yeah, if you guys ever stop by the office, we have lots of dogs. You're welcome to say hi to them.
we like to be a resource, for you. Please feel free to contact us at any time. We're happy to brainstorm with you, talk to you, whatever. Like I said, we like to be a resource to the community. So we going to see the dogs. Good.
Yeah, come on over. We're in Longwood. Come see the dogs.
Now, we've been doing monthly webinars for the last, few months, and we plan to continue those in January. And from time to time, we have guest speakers. I'm hoping to have John Finch has already agreed to partner with us next year to do something on ABLE accounts. And we have, perhaps we're trying to get some APD, a expert on that to partner with us next year. If you have any ideas for topics that you'd like to hear about, please let us know, and we'll see
Yeah,
what we
you guys can
do
email
here.
me.
Yeah, and we
I sent
have some of our
everybody
stuff.
emails.
Yeah, we have PowerPoints on some of our prior ones also, if you're interested in any of those presentations. So thank you so much.
Okay, well, it looks like I'm not seeing any other questions. So thank you guys very much. Like we said, we'll send out the slides and the recording and all sorts of good stuff, okay? Thank you. You guys have a good day. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.